Hi! Would you like a calendar that will update itself? Well, stick around. Today on Daily Creations, I'm going to show you how to set up a rolling calendar in Trello completely free. So January is a time when a lot of people make the effort to get more organized. In fact, I am one of those people who is perpetually trying to get more organized, usually without very much success. Until now. Let me introduce you to my friend, the rolling calendar. So this is a free application called Trello, and it's available for both desktop and mobile, which is great because it means you always have your to-do list with you. You can check it on your phone. You can add things. The mobile app does work offline, so that's great. Now there are tons of beginner videos about Trello, about setting Trello up online, and I want to keep the focus of this video on setting up a rolling calendar. So I'm just going to keep this super short. I've put time codes in the video description, so if you want to jump ahead to the calendar setup, you can do that nice and easy, or jump around to any other section of this video. So Trello is an application that allows you to sort information into boards, lists, and individual cards. So this whole screen this is a board, and it is part of a team. In this case, it's Kaylee's team. She's letting me use it right now. This is a list. This is another list, one more list. These are lists can be dragged and dropped, and then each list contains cards. So if I open up this card, you can write all sorts of stuff in the description. You can add pictures, attachments, comments, and so forth. There's all sorts of things you can do with cards. Label them, put checklists in them, due dates, all sorts of attachments. Like I said, you can give them different colors, different colored covers. Like I said, I don't want to go into the nitty-gritty about Trello, but this is some of just a very, very brief outline of what you can do. I like to think of it as a series of corkboards that have been divided into columns. So each list is a column, and then you essentially have your super powerful sticky notes here that you can move around from list to list and mark on and so forth. If you've ever heard of a Kanban board or Kanban board, that is one of Trello's primary functions. One of the most basic boards you can do is have a to-do, a doing, and a done list, and basically people will, these are all the stuff I have to do. Oh, I've started this one, so I'm working on it right now, and then when it's done, I move it over here and go on to the next one. So that is a very typical, almost your most basic Trello board. So here is a typical to-do list / calendar on Trello, or how you might first have the instinct to set up a to-do / calendar on Trello. If you've tried this before, you might already know what's wrong with this. So you set it all up and you start to use it, but then already, okay, life's gotten nuts. So on Sunday, I set everything up and I set my to-dos here. I needed to film my Trello video. I need to update DK store hours. We need to get milk. Monday, I have to post it to the Instagram. Well, let's just say something came up, things got nuts, and uh-oh, it's Tuesday already. Well, so what's the first thing I have to do once I get in here? Well, instead of immediately jumping in and working on my to-do list, I gotta move this over here, and I gotta drag this one over here, and I gotta drag this one over and this one, and I have to archive Sunday and Monday, and so now this is the current date, but then I have to go over here and pretty soon I'm going to have to add Friday. And Saturday. And I can't spell January apparently. And so on and so forth. So I'm spending more time updating the structure of the calendar than I am actually doing my stuff or triaging my stuff. It takes all this time just to continue to set it up. And that was only missing out on a couple days. If it had been a week later or a month, which can often happen if, like myself, you have depression or anxiety, and or just you get busy, or you're trying to learn to get organized and you fall off the wagon a little bit. So all that happens is when you come back in here, you already feel like a failure because you can see that everything is you see exactly when the last time you came in here and checked your calendar and tried to do stuff. Plus, then you've got the added problem of having to update everything before you can actually get down to work. So this is where our rolling calendar comes in. And this isn't just a Trello thing. I've tried pen and paper planners too, and then you get stuck having to have them on you, and you also have to keep them manually updated. In fact, it's even more difficult because instead of being able to drag them around, you've got to manually rewrite them on the next pages and so forth. So yes, that's where our friend the rolling calendar is going to show up. So this, in contrast, is a rolling calendar. And a rolling calendar does what it says on the tin. It automatically rolls over from day to day and moves all the unfinished items from yesterday's to-do list to today's without having you to do anything. It then deletes yesterday or all previous days from the calendar and automatically adds the next day at the end of whatever length of cycle you have. So this particular calendar, rolling calendar, is a week-long cycle, but you could do 2 weeks, you could do a month, etc. You can have almost as many of these as you want. So for instance, in comparison to the last calendar we looked at, today is Tuesday, here's Tuesday's front and center, and everything is ready to go. So the things that I didn't get to on Sunday and Monday are already here waiting for me, and I just have to go through and decide what to do with them. So write draft 1 of the Trello guide. Well, I've already done that, so I can get rid of it. I got to film my Trello guide. I need to get milk. Oh, look, tomorrow is garbage day. So if, for instance, I still didn't get to these items today, then tonight at midnight, Trello is just going to automatically move these over here, and it's going to get rid of Tuesday because it would no longer be Tuesday, and then it's going to add Tuesday, and I can't spell February over here at the end, and it's just going to do that every day with so tomorrow when I log in and I check my board, all that stuff's here today, and tomorrow it'll roll over again and again. And what I like about this is it's this beautiful synthesis of a traditional calendar and a to-do list. And so it allows me the flexibility to set deadlines when I need them. So for instance, due date. Well, I want this video to come out on Friday, so I'm going to set a to-do date for that. There's the to-do date now. But most of this other stuff, like I need to get milk. Generally, there's not a deadline for getting milk, and it lets me stay aware of times and dates for things that need them, and then everything else, it just doesn't set in stone anything else. And I love that. It also lets me see my whole week at a glance, which is also really, really nice.
Kaylee Muse here. Before we get into the actual how-to, I want you to know that we have written a PDF guide that will walk you through this whole process step by step. There are spots you are going to have to write a teeny bit of code, so if you would prefer to follow along on paper, just follow the link in the description. You can download the guide for $2 or sign up for our mailing list and you can get it completely free.
So obviously the first thing you need to set up a rolling account or a rolling calendar in Trello is a Trello account. So there are free accounts, and then there's the gold personal account, which is about $45 US a year. And then there's a business account, which is going to charge you a minimum of $9.99 per person per month. All the instructions I'm giving you today are going to work with all three accounts. I'll go briefly into, but we're going to make sure that it works with the free account. So of course, the first thing you need to do is to head to Trello.com and click sign up. And I'm not going to walk you through this whole thing. You will need a current email address for this that hasn't been used for a Trello account before. But, you know, Trello is pretty good about walking you through the steps and giving you a quick tutorial on your first teams and boards, etc. And obviously, if you already have an account, then you're going to want to log in. So the second thing you need to set up your rolling calendar is Butler, which is a tool within Trello. You can see over here on the upper right, the button. And this is what Butler looks like when you open it. There's all sorts of documentation and so forth. Trello loves to tell you about Butler, and I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty, but basically these are triggers over on the side. So it's an automation feature in Trello which allows you basically to program in commands that will trigger when certain conditions are met. So like we're going to be dealing with the calendar button here, which is automations that are triggered on certain days or times. The due date ones all have to do with the due dates on particular cards. Card buttons and board buttons make actual physical buttons that will trigger certain commands. The only difference is with the board button, it's one big one up here, very similar to the Butler button, and a card button appears on individual cards. And then rules basically covers everything else. It allows you to set triggers for conditions that aren't covered by these guys down here. So until recently, Trello free accounts, you were only allowed to have one of each of these types of automation across your entire account. And they've just very recently taken that away, and it's no longer the case. So the restriction has become the total number of commands and operations you're able to run each month. So a free account is limited to 50 commands and 500 operations. A command is any time an automation is triggered, and then the operations are the number of things that does. So for instance, when your calendar rolls over every night, the actual rollover is one command, but the moving of the cards, well, that's 3 operations because it moved 3 cards. Then archiving the list is another operation, and adding it over here. So that's 5 operations triggered by one command. So you're only allowed 50 commands a month, which means that with a free account, 1 command a day to roll the calendar, 30 to 31 days a month. That means you've used up 30 to 31 commands per month, and that leaves you a couple extra for testing or a few optional automations. But if you set up a rolling calendar, on a free account, most of your commands are going to get used up by the calendar itself. So then if you have a gold or a business account, you get more commands and operations, which means you can automate more of your boards and do extra fun things. But that's the major difference now between as far as Butler is concerned, between the three accounts. In the past, Trello had two types of boards. You had personal boards that only you could access, and you had team boards where you could create up to 10 boards a team and then share them with other people. So for instance, on our actual rolling calendar, Panda Partner and I share that team where the calendar is. But Trello's recently removed the option to create personal boards. They would have been up here somewhere. So now all your boards must be part of a team. So for instance, this is a team, cosplay, crafts, and creativity. If I click on that, these are my individual boards. So even if you're the only person using these, you have to have everything grouped in a team. And also because of that, they're shortly going to name teams workspaces. So if by the time you use this guide, you're asking for teams, where are my teams? They might be renamed workspaces by the time you use this. But if your Trello account, if you had an older Trello account and you're adding a rolling calendar, you might still have personal boards and they might still appear. So you do not want to create a rolling calendar as a personal board. One, because they're limiting you in how you create new ones, and they're being phased out. So it's just going to be easier to set everything up as a team. So let's do that. Let's sample rolling calendar. This doesn't really matter. I'm going to pick other. And an example of a rolling calendar. The team type and the team type really doesn't do anything, and the team type, their description, really only if you've got other members, etc., or if this was within a company. So we're going to continue. Calrissian at Cloud City, I love that. Invite your team. I'm not inviting anybody right now. I'll do this later. So this is where you'd set everything up, and they have templates, etc. We're just going to get rid of that. So I recommend setting up, and you can change the picture here and all sorts of stuff, but I recommend setting up at least 3 boards. So one this week. No, we'll come back to that in a second. Oh, 2 this month. Let's pick yellow. And it's going to automatically take me in here. And I want to go back to the team page, and then let's do green. Or actually, let's save it as a picture. So this 3 this year. And when you create a board, it'll automatically take you in. This background, you can, with the free account, you can choose colors or photos as your backdrop. It doesn't really matter. It's all cosmetic, but it's fun. And sorry, free accounts, but you can only add custom backgrounds if you're on a paid account. But they've still got quite a selection available. Now, I also highly recommend that you star these. And the reason I put the numbers is up here for boards. One, if you star them, it automatically puts them at the top of your pile of boards. And then if you put numbers, then it keeps them in order. So these were the sample ones I had set up already, and these are the ones we're working on right now. So that keeps, numbering them keeps them all in order, and starring them keeps them right up at the top of the board list here, which is really nice. You could also, if you're getting things done, a Dave Allen GTD fan, you could call this a tickler as well. It's entirely up to you. And yeah, you can pretty them up however you want. So this week is going to be our main board, particularly if you have a free account. And before we start with Butler, we've got to set up our lists. So we'll start by creating the following lists from left to right. So I like to do one called Catch All and Projects. And the reason I do these two Catch All is I like to have a sort of landing spot for stuff that comes up during the day. And this is mainly if you're checking Trello on your phone, because there's a widget that you can put on the home screen for your phone that allows you to add a card to a particular list on a particular board without having to open all of Trello. And so by having this here and having the widget aim at this list, everything drops right there, and I can make a quick note on my phone and I know exactly where it's going to be later, and that I can sort it into the rest of my week as I need to. Projects is also optional, but I find it nice, so I can create a big project. And there's a fun trick here. Oh, let's give it a cover. This is admittedly mainly cosmetic stuff, but I like it. And then a checklist, stuff to do for big project. Step 1, step 2, step 3. And then what's fun here is these 3 little dots. You can click on those and say convert to card, and it will automatically create that as a card as part of your big project. So now I can, if I know I'm only going to have, rather than have all of big project on my day, if I know that I'm only going to be able to get to one step, I can put that here and put just that card on one day, knowing that I'm checking off here. Okay, and now we actually add the dates. So depending on the day you're doing this, you want to start with yesterday's date, and that's going to be for testing the board later. So today's the 26th, so we want to put Monday, January 25th, 2021. This comma after the date is really important. You have to have that comma in there. I'll explain why later, but you got to have that comma. And make sure everything is nice and written properly as well. We were testing these earlier, and Panda Partner wrote it Tuesday and he missed a letter by accident, and completely messed with the programming, or that was an easy troubleshooting. So you can just hit enter after typing everything out, and it will move you on to the next list. Nice. So this calendar is only going to be a week. So once we get to Sunday, we are good. So now I've opened Butler. You can find that, you can get to Butler by clicking on the Butler button at the upper right side of your board. I just can't do it all in one go because the capture software actually covers up the button on me. But you won't normally have that problem. And then over here, we're going to click on calendar, and then back to the right, the big create command button. And so first we have to set a trigger, and that's the condition that must be met to get our command to run. So in this case, we're going to set up a time every day when the command triggers the calendar to roll over. So select a schedule every day, and then you click on this little clock icon and you can choose a time. So I'm going to set it for 12:01 a.m. So 1 minute after midnight every day our calendar is going to roll over, but you can set this for whatever time you want. It can be 7 a.m., it can be 3 a.m., it can be 1 in the afternoon. Obviously, it makes sense to have it do it before you wake up. And then once we've chosen our time, we're just going to lock it in with this big green plus button over here. So we've set our trigger every day at 12:01 a.m. And now we have to program in the actions that we want to be triggered at 12:01 a.m. So we're going to choose the category Move Cards. And this is where we're going to set the first thing we want to do is we want the command to copy all the cards from yesterday's list to today's list. So we can't put yesterday's list to today. It doesn't understand that as a command. We can't actually even put Monday, January 25th to Tuesday, January 26th, because if we do that, then the command will only ever trigger once, because basically tomorrow at 12:01, suddenly Trello is going to be looking for a list called Monday, January 25th, which will no longer exist. So we have to enter what is called a variable here, which is basically a placeholder for a specific list. It tells Trello to look for a list that contains these that contains variations on this theme or on this condition, and to use that. But first, we're going to actually set this to this week. Oh, and this one too. So these are board button commands this week. If you don't do this first, I don't know why, but if you don't set the board first and then you try to type in this in the list name panel, it just erases what you've done. So we'll set the board first. So we need curly bracket, and so move all the cards in list, open curly bracket, week, day, name, minus 1D, closed bracket, space, open bracket, date, minus 1D. And again, I have a free PDF, if you follow the link in the description, that writes out all the instructions for setting up your rolling calendar. So if you want to have this written out in front of you so that you're not trying to follow along as I type these commands in, follow the link, sign up for a mailing list, download the free PDF, and you will be good to go. So the reason we do this is date is basically Trello's variable for today's date. So we want the command to choose the list that has yesterday's date, hence the 1 minus 1D, or take the list that has today's date minus 1 day, which is yesterday, and move it to today. So for today's list, we want it to say weekday name, close bracket, space, open bracket, date, close bracket. And then once you've got that written out, you hit the big plus button. And then if we scroll up, it should say actions. Move all the cards in list weekday name minus 1D, date minus 1D on board this week to list weekday name, date on board, or to list weekday name, date on board this week. So move all the cards in yesterday's list on board this week to list today on board this week. So now we have to add, so now we want to move yesterday's list to the last spot on our board. So we're going to scroll down to the section. So we're going to scroll down to add another action, and we're going to click on the button marked lists, and we want the fourth one down, move list name. So again, we're going to set this to this week's board, and yesterday's list still has the name weekday name minus 1D, close bracket, date minus 1D, bracket, to, now we don't want the top position, we want position 9. So basically that's going to move it to the end of, it's going to move it all to the end of the lists. And we're going to lock that in with the green plus. And finally, we want to rename yesterday's list to a day 6 days from now, and that's what finishes the roll. So yesterday was Monday, so it's moved Monday's list to the end of the list of days, but it still says Monday, January 25th. So we now want it to say Monday, February 2nd, I think it is, or whatever next Monday's date will be. So we want to go up to the second option here, rename list. And again, week, day, name, minus 1D, date, minus 1D, to weekday name minus 1D, because we still want it to have the name of yesterday's weekday, but we want that date portion to read, to be the date plus 6D, or 6 days from now. And I'm going to put these up at the bottom of the screen because it doesn't let you see the whole variable at once on here. And then we lock that in. So we'll just go up here. Again, you can double check trigger every day at 12:01 a.m. Move all the cards in the list weekday name minus 1 day on board this week to list weekday name. So that's yesterday's list to today's list. And then move list weekday name minus 1 to position 9 on the board, which should be the last spot, and rename yesterday's list to the name of a date 6 days from now. I know it's a little weird, trust me, it will make sense. And then we go up here and click Save. And we should have set up our rolling calendar. So we're just going to X out of Butler for a moment. And this is why I told you to put yesterday's, to start your pile of lists with yesterday's date, because now we're going to test our calendar. So you don't have to do anything fancy to test it. Just make a couple cards, test 1, test 2, test 3. That'll work. And then we're going to go back into Butler. So here we are in Butler, and we're going to go back over to calendar. So here's your command, our rolling calendar command, all set up and ready to go. It's very important to make sure enabled on this board is checked. It probably will be. And this is because in theory, if you had a whole bunch of different calendar commands that work, these commands work across your entire account. Or are available across your entire Trello account, regardless of what board or team you are on. So in theory, if you had more commands set up, some of them, you don't want them to work on every single board you have. So you can turn that on and off by checking this little question mark or check mark. So we definitely want it enabled on this board. And now we're going to test our command. So it's not 1201, but there's a way to do this anyways. And that's this little spaceship guy right here. And if we click on him, run now, it's going to run the command. And it may take a minute, but hopefully we're going to get the green check mark, ran command, and all is well. So if we exit Butler, then look, now the first date list is Tuesday. Everything's been moved over. And if we scroll over here, Monday, February 1st is the last card. So everything's as it should be. Now I've come back into Butler, and we're going to go back and we're going to run this again because I want you to see what happens if there's an error. So we're going to hit run again. And it goes to run command. There was an error running the command. And if I click on details, it's going to actually break down everything it's tried to do. So running command on board this week, it seems that the source list Monday, January 25th, 2020 doesn't exist. Perhaps it is archived. So that happened because it's looking for yesterday's list. And because we've already successfully run the command once today, yesterday's list no longer exists. It's been moved to the end of the line and renamed February 1st. So this is actually okay. We're fine. But if you have an error in your code somewhere, this is going to help you debug it and figure out what's going on. So for instance, if you can't decipher from that details what's going on or what might be the error, then the other thing to do is come up here and double check that everything is spelled correctly. This is also why it's really super important to have that comma there after the date, because if you, the way Butler formats that date command, so when it says date in curly brackets, it expects to see a comma there. So if you don't have a comma, so actually let's move this back. Move these guys back over. We're going to rename this January 25th. And we're going to take out the comma. So even though this is yesterday's list and yesterday's commands, I'm going to show you what happens if you're missing something as simple as that comma there. So now if we go in and we try to run this, there was an error. Click. And it seems that the source list Monday, January 25th, 2021 doesn't exist. Perhaps it's archived. So this is where you might get confused because, well, we have a Monday, it's right there. But see, it's missing the comma, and Trello's looking for a list called Monday, January 25th, comma, 2021. So that's why you got to pay really close attention and double check things like spelling and making sure the comma is there. But if I add that comma back in and we run the command, everything's good. We exit here and everything's been moved over and everything is as it should be. So congratulations, you've just programmed your own rolling calendar. It's all set up and ready to go. Plus, now you have a bit of an idea of how programming in Butler works. You can come up with your own commands. You can see it's kind of drag and drop. I will point you at, in the description for the video or in our PDF, there are links to 2 pages that will help you out if you want to start coming up with your own Butler commands. One is the variables page under Trello Help. And what this does is give you a list of all those variables and how you can manipulate them to get Trello to look for particular cards, particular boards. So for instance, date, this is how you know what Trello is expecting or looking at if you write date in curly brackets, and see, there's that comma. It's expecting the full name of the month, the numerical date, and then the year, or month, day, number. So if you just want to use the 3, anyways, so it breaks down all of these and all the commands you can name or you can use. And then the other page is arithmetic and formatting in date variables. So this is how you get things like date minus 7 days. So date minus 7D is the date 7 days ago. So this is how you can do things like write yesterday as date minus 1 day, or 1D. So those are 2 very helpful pages if you're coming up with your own Butler variables.
Kaylee here again. Don't forget, if any of this tutorial has gone by too quickly, we have a step-by-step PDF you can download. Join our mailing list at dailycreations.com, and you can not only download the guide for free, but you'll also receive monthly tips on cosplay, crafting, and living a daily creative life. Also, if you enjoyed this tutorial, please let us know. Comment, like, and subscribe. We'll see you next time at Daily Creations.